Hiya, it's Liam here. Just a quick one before we get started. You can now support America at History via the link at the bottom of the show notes. So individuals can give us a one-off tip, or from just 150 a month, you can support the show monthly. Or if you represent a university, a college, or a higher education institution, you can now become an academic partner too. All of those details are in the bottom of the show notes. So check that out and enjoy. Hello and welcome to this extra bonus episode following on from the latest episode of America a History podcast. We recently published Will America Ever Elect a Woman for President? And I'm joined now by Farida Jalalzai to discuss this a little bit more. Farida, thank you so much for hanging on.
Of course, it's my pleasure.
Yeah, it's been we've just recorded the main podcast and I feel like we've just only slightly peeled open a big can of worms that we need to just discuss so much more. But it was a really fun episode to do. So anyone listening to this, it's in your feed right now, so go check that out. But I wanted to just pick up on a couple of things because we normally take a look back when we do the main podcast. I want to take a look more forward with you for just a moment. And I'm going to put you on the spot. You know, realistically, what do you really think Kamala Harris's chances of winning are this year?
You're asking me today. I say it's very good, right? I think that she's just really enjoyed this wave of support. There's this excitement that she's still able to leverage. The attacks that the Trump campaign are implementing don't really seem to be working. And so I think right now it looks good. On the other hand, we have a lot of time left. So it's still a ways away, even though this is a shortened period, there's still a lot left. And you're seeing some of the criticisms against Harris's campaign in terms of being light on policy substance. There's this frequent mention of it's the vibes campaign. And in many respects, I think that is meant to diminish her credentials. And I think she has done a good job more recently of trying to bring in more of the policy details, but certainly there's going to be more and more demand for that. I want to see this debate. Of course, now, the last I knew, Trump was wavering. But I think that this would be an instance where being able to hear the different candidates debate one another on issues is really important, right?
I agree. And I think this could potentially be where Trump really kind of derails his campaign in the upcoming debate. Just for context, we're recording this in the last week of August. So the presidential debate has not yet been. And I do wonder, Trump, to his credit, actually does seem a little bit cautious about this. And I feel like with good reason, because Kamala Harris is a trained lawyer. Like, she knows how to argue with people and she knows how to win an argument.
Right. Yeah, I think that there is some fear to be there based on what we would expect. Of course, her quality of debate should be very high. And at the same time, I don't know how many of the examples we could talk about where you would think if he debates her, that it would maybe derail him a little bit, but somehow not. Yeah.
Trump is in just a weirdly kind of win-win situation, though, isn't he? Because of how he positions himself. Because if he loses the debate, he just goes on the attack and says, "Oh, it wasn't fair. The questions weren't fair," and all of his supporters kind of rally around that. Yeah. So he's never going to lose his base, no matter how badly he performs at the debate, will he?
That's true. So in many ways, he may just very well want to perform for them again and not be so worried because they're going to think he's their candidate anyway. So
yeah, I wonder if Kamala Harris is obviously very, very savvy when it comes to campaigning, and we've seen that in just the last few weeks, how she's galvanized her donors and how she's really embraced social media and and launched a campaign from sort of 0 to 60 in no time. But I think that also translates into the messaging and the language, because Biden really got dragged into this these sort of schoolyard sort of arguments with Trump, and it kind of got quite petty. But I think Kamala realizes that that's not the way to beat Trump. But I also wonder if there's a gender dynamic in there that she's very aware of, that if she stoops down to Trump's level, she'll be seen as the irrational, emotional woman.
Right. I think that that is a risk that, is being considered. Though I did see on social media recently the campaign. Did you see the one where there's the clip of Trump saying, here are the many reasons why I'm considering pulling out from the debate, and they have a chicken that's clucking. So I think she does this in a cheeky way
Yeah.
that's still somehow, I mean, it's endearing. It's not, I mean, it's endearing to people that like, the Harris campaign, but isn't like super mean and vengeful,
Yeah, she's playing it really smart, and she's kind of poking fun without being petty. And I think she's finding that balance really well. But did you, on the subject of Trump speeches, did you see the dialogue he gave at a rally about how he's better looking than Kamala Harris?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
it's like
yeah.
he can't stand being second best at anything.
No. But then he's also talked about how she's beautiful, right? And
Yeah.
it's just, when we think about it, is almost as though Trump is just, he's just someone, a candidate onto his own, and someone that's unlike any other that we've dealt with. And for whatever reason, for many, there's an appeal to that. But it makes us who are studying, this in terms of the history of campaigns, just scratch our heads and think, how is this something that resonates?
Yeah.
And if Harris were to stumble, if she were to stumble on the, on the convention stage, or, on the debate stage, would people be as forgiving, or would they be hypercritical? And of course, she's trying to appeal to those who are more moderate or independents, right? And so needs to gain that space more. But I feel as though she would be much more likely to receive criticism from stumbles or attacks that she would make against Trump.
Yeah, and I agree. It seems that Harris certainly has more to lose from the debate, and part of that is a lot of the things that we talked about on the podcast. I think these expectations of Harris are different from Trump, and that does play a part. And I think there's more pressure on her to deliver, because this is really the first platform she's going to stand on to sort of really put forward her policies, which until now she's largely avoided doing.
Yeah, and she's bringing policy in more, but I think that recognizing that soon, immediately, really dealing with that criticism and bringing in more of the policy details are essential. I mean, it really is essential.
Yeah, and assuming Harris goes on to win the election, do you think that this will be just one step closer to having a future ticket that doesn't have a white or male person on it, or is that going to be decided more by how successful she is in office?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think it's the latter. I think because of the fact that she would be occupying, a new space for women and women of color specifically, that again, the standards are going to be higher. And so we will come back to that question based on the perceptions of that leadership. Whereas nobody, has thought, based on the failures of men, who've been in the presidency, that means that, men aren't going to be featured on a ticket. And in fact, one of the parties has nominated someone who's, I think many people could say, an unsuccessful leader.
Yeah, and it's I mean, you're right. Therein lies the difference, and there's been 46 presidents. They've all done some good things. I'm sure they've all done some bad things, but you're right, it never gets discussed. Oh, does that mean a white man won't be on the ticket at the next election because they've been a bad president? I mean, it's not even a question, right? But Kamala Harris could get into office and then suddenly she defines what is
Mhm.
expected of black women in
Right.
office in America, and
Right.
the pressure must be immense for that.
I think so. And it just really focus. And when we think about that, it brings focus to the double edged sword. We can recognize the importance of this history being made, but then also recognize the potential based on still some of these inequities and the way that the system has worked, and those who have held power haven't been people that include women or women of color as much, right?
Mm,
Based on those same circumstances, if they have this, if they falter in any way, there's this tendency to use those descriptive characteristics as explanations as to why. Also,
yeah.
though, we are again, we may be scrutinizing them much more for that fact.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, when we don't have to have this conversation, when we don't have to record these podcasts, that's when we're living in a world where there's true equity in at least in politics. And yeah, the fact that we're sitting here right now, sort of debating this, says that there is still a big issue. And
Mm,
hopefully, America are on the path to change that.
hopefully,
Yeah.
we'll keep it on the positive note.
Yeah, we keep trying to end optimistically.
Yeah.
um, right, well, thank you so much, Farida, for joining me for this, and also for the main podcast, which again, if you haven't listened to, do check it out right now. It's in the feed. Thank you very much, and goodbye.